was looking through the like my photos to find slides, like to put some slides together for this talk. This screenshot jumped out. It was my first iPhone. Brenton was my business partner that I built the Bird with, and the camaraderie that we had as a pair of founders, and the camaraderie that existed in the team, and the connection that the team had with the community of people that we served was just awesome. And I'm going to talk about that dimension of relationships, the relationships we have with our teammates and the relationships we have with our customers. Because there's a lot of procedural hygiene associated with running a business and all your market opportunity scanning, yada, yada. But if that, especially true when you're doing technical things that perhaps haven't been done before, or certainly haven't been done many times before. You're stepping into the unknown like every day, and you need to be like the only thing that will actually sustain people is their love for each other, and your customers are like counting on you to actually deliver a solution that you said you would. And they're putting their faith in you perhaps to do something that hasn't been done before. So like that relationship is the thing that's going to drive you to give them a good outcome. I won't rabbit on about that too much. I'll just get into talking about the various businesses and kind of what I learned. Right, cool. So yeah, the Bird was, the first one was just like beginner's luck. It was this perfect, unplanned situation where I used to religiously go to these jazz gigs on Thursday nights at the Moon in Northbridge. I don't know, finger snap if anyone used to do that, but cool. And sort of 2005 to 2009, a good friend, Dan DePaolo, was a foundational drummer in that scene, and it was a cool gig, the Thursday nights at the Moon. But it was like epic group of musos playing, not on a stage, like playing on pavers on the ground while everyone else talked and just ignored them. And it was a cool hang, but it didn't present the musicians in their best light. And I was riding my bicycle home from a gig one night and pulled over, put my bike against a window to grab a jumper out of my backpack. And when I went to get back on the bike, I noticed that that place was for lease. And I could see beautiful timber floors, copper inlays in the flooring, and could visualise how it could be a venue really quite easily with a couple of minor modifications. And yeah, so took the phone number down of the real estate agent and rang him up the next day and told a few lies so that he took me seriously, pretended I owned the house I was renting, etc., and got the lease. Lined up the option to get the lease. And a good mate, Brenton, who's there in that photo, and it was him that message obviously before, he introduced me to one of his mates who apparently was really cashed up and looking to invest in something. And so, yep, we had the idea, had the money, had the project, off we go. Or so we thought. It turned out that the guy that had the money because it's gone to sleep. That's a shame. He had the money because his German girlfriend had put the money in his bank account as part of, she just wanted a passport out of him, and then that was always going to be it. And he started investing her money into building a pub. And so she wasn't, like that relationship wasn't good. And so when she's found out, that's caused quite a problem. And so it's caused quite a problem for us as well, because like we've done structural damage to a building we don't own, and we've run out of money halfway through. And there was some management in getting that individual who'd created the problems, like getting him out. But the way that Brenton just stepped up, like just relentlessly, he was a guy who in any situation, he would just try to give more. And yeah, no, it was really brilliant. the Bird was popular enough that oftentimes, it was a 120 capacity venue, oftentimes it'd be 60 people in the courtyard smoking darts, being cool, 60 people in the venue paying attention to the band, and like 60, 100 people in the line wishing they were inside. They're there to see the band, you know. And I thought that you could solve that problem with a socially connected app where, you know, people could get a socially connected gig guide app where you could follow events by genre or location, or I want to follow what Alex is following, that kind of stuff. And so we started building this app. We raised some money for it, and where I failed here was I freaked out halfway through the raise. This is so ridiculous when I say it now, but the plan was always, I thought it was a good plan. The plan was raise some money, spend half of it building some tech, the other half putting on some events that everyone would want to go to. We raised the cash, and I start freaking out like, what if the app doesn't work or isn't loved? Let's stop raising any more money because I'm feeling nervous about the amount of cash we've got to manage as it is, and let's just get the technology right. And I was the most nightmarish leader in that team, like reflecting on it to put this talk together where instead of being out there talking to customers, finding out what they want, we knew what they want and giving them what they want. You know, I'd come to work every day and I'd have a new wish list of features because I thought that if we had the snappiest, coolest app, it would just work. And the fact that you don't have Hip Flask on your phone and I'm not a billionaire, you know, you can kind of work out how that one ended. So yeah, Toastface Griller. Toastface Griller was, I was introduced to the landlord because we had a weird way of working with City of Perth and Department of Racing, Gaming and Liquor. We were pretty creative about finding a way to get the outcome that we needed. So made a few friends in City of Perth, and someone introduced me to the guy that owned this building, a great dude named Peter Rossdeutscher. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of him, but if you hear that name around, he's worth getting to know. And his property was, like his street front ground floor was occupied and everything else was empty. He wanted to find something good to do with this like kind of Willy Wonka vibed gingerbread house of a building. And I'm not sure how well you guys can see it there, but you know, we ended up with Toastface in the back. And actually, let me go back a step. You know, there's this cool building and this cool guy. I'm trying to work out what to do with that opportunity. And I was out with a friend one night, and just the words Toastface Griller just came into my consciousness. And it was so funny because like from there, if those words came into anyone's head, the business plan just writes itself, right? So there's no effort required from there. It's like, oh, sick, we'll do toasted sandwiches. And so that was pure luck and being around people that just wanted to do something fun, and a landlord that was happy to say, yeah, you can pay some rent later, like all of that stuff that was based on like building rapport with people. And it was a fantastic time of life because we ended up having, Hip Flask was based upstairs, Toastface is there at ground level. That bottom corner photo, I had a swag rolled out in one of the rooms. You can see it's like Alex is going to save me again. Thank you, Alex. Oh, sick. Yeah, so life was, you know, start the day working with the team at Hip Flask. 5 o'clock comes around, go to the pub, stay at the pub till close, maybe later. You know, walk back to the cafe, raid the fridge, eat some brie, eat some hamon. It was a nightmare. And then go upstairs, sleep in my swag. I'd wake up at 7 o'clock or just before then when I'd hear Al, my business partner at the cafe, opening the cafe. I'd sneak out the side door, go to the Bird, have a shower, have a coffee, come back, have a second coffee with the guys at Hip Flask there at Toastface, go upstairs, do it again. I do that. I was like working a 5 and 2 roster. I'd do that 5 nights a week, and then on weekends I'd go back to my share house. And it was fun, but it was just like ridiculous. And I was spread extraordinarily thin. But what was awesome was I was spending time around engineers again, because I spent so much time around musicians, and I'm a significantly worse musician than I am engineer. The idea of actually building the venue, the core of it was that I'd get to spend time with these musicians that I'd otherwise never be able to be in their league. Oops. And so, because my attention was elsewhere, and I'm the sort of person who, like, I can't help myself. I see a crap car and I see potential in it, and so I would work on crap cars. I'd rebuild things, and every time I had an opportunity to rebuild a car or a motorbike, I'd do a back of the envelope to see if it was worth converting to electric, and it had never been so. That was something that was always in my mind. And I was starting to think that, well, it was quite obvious I was no longer creating any value at the pub, because I'd just be the person coming in, cutting the line, bringing my friends in, staying late, making a mess. You know, my value was at the front end of that project, not the sustainment campaign. Originally I was the booking guy and the sound guy, but then a better booking person, a better sound person presented and gave them the jobs. So I was effectively redundant at the pub. And that a guy who I used to get that coffee from every morning told me about a friend of his sister who had run out of money building some extreme electric superbike. I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. And the timing was right as well, because one of the bar managers, Tanya, wanted to buy into the Bird. She had the resources, she was keen, everyone loved her. And I thought, okay, cool, I'm gonna sell, I'll work out how to sell my share down. So I get some cash, I can do this superbike thing. I remember this feeling of like a disgusting feeling of like a knot in my stomach when I was bargaining with myself about how much of this thing to sell down. I just couldn't get it right. There was no number that made sense in terms of cash or how much equity I wanted to keep. And then when I just thought, what if I just sell the whole lot and walk away from this? And that gross feeling went away, and I felt like, oh wow, I could just do other stuff with my life. I wouldn't have to be always at a pub every night, which, yeah, I was always there. And so I made the call, sold the pub, and made a commitment to fund the development of that bike. And announced it by having an event at the pub, and yeah, and so then we built this bike. And I don't know if you can see it there, but it's got volts and amps written with a Sharpie on the dashboard. And I think right now it says something like 640 volts and 280 amps or thereabouts. Like, it was good numbers. The bike, in 2014, mind you, was good for a 9.9 second quarter mile. We got told not to come back without a parachute, because you're not allowed to do sub-10s without a parachute on a bike, so that was cool. We couldn't get that in writing. It would have been a cool thing to frame. Won a bunch of races, but there was no community. Like, it was fun in pit lane when you're there to compete for a weekend and help each other out, but outside of the races, I never found myself being a part of a community. And it wasn't, like, we set it up as a company, but it wasn't a business. It wasn't there to serve anyone. It was just, we were trying to make one bike go as fast as possible, and that was the agenda. So it was a huge technical success. And whilst I've got only kind things to say about my co-founder in that venture, we had no chemistry. And so camaraderie was never going to develop. We see each other around, we've got similar interests, and we're like ships in the night. We're just like, hey, g'day, see you later. yeah, and so like, yeah, surprise, surprise, that one kind of went nowhere. And on one hand, it was very expensive way to learn some things. You know, people say that thing about boats being expensive. I think that running an electric superbike development racing campaign for 3 years is probably on par with a pretty good boat. So, but look, great lessons learnt, because everything about that is the foundation of what we do now, and we'll talk about what we do in a bit. So good people create good times. Good times create soft people. Soft people create hard times. Hard times create good people. Good people create good times. This is a version of the hero's quest. It defines a narrative that I definitely see across many timescales in my own life. I think it plays out over decades, it plays out over centuries, it plays out over days and hours as well. It's the hare and the tortoise. And what I didn't realise at the time was I was exceedingly lucky in everything where I'd had a success, and none of it was actually because I was worthy of the success. I had taken for granted the help that a much broader community was offering, and I kind of learnt this the hard way. When I signed the share sale contract for the bird, my signature is all splotched because of the tears that were dripping off my face. In the time that it took to go from an agreement to the paperwork, a person I was very close to took their own life. And so I was in this situation of being a highly functioning alcoholic, cashed up, who's just sold his community and didn't realise it. And that's a really interesting thing. I've talked to a few people over the years, like when you sell a business, you sell a community, and no one talks about it. And it's really fucking hard. And it was a hard time. And it's so fucking corny, but I was saved by the love of a good woman. I'd always loved Holly Scott from the moment that I met her, and I friend-zoned myself straight away because I thought, no fucking chance, buddy. Like, lock this in as a friend, and like that's a better life than like fucking it up. And we were at a gig once, and she was telling me how she's going to go to South America as soon as she can find a travel buddy or an adventure buddy, as she put it. And I said something like 20% serious, like, I think you're looking at him. And the way she her posture's changed and she was looking at me differently. I remember feeling like, oh shit, like way more intense than all you guys looking at me right now, like fucking way more. I was like, fuck. And yeah. And so, yeah, when she told me I was welcome to come on that trip to South America, I sold my share of Toastface. The various things I was keeping myself busy with could all be put in storage. No one counted on me. I wasn't leading a team. I wasn't engaged with a community. So thankfully, I could go away. And Holly put an idea in front of me once. She could see it was exactly what I needed. And if I'm going to tear up over anything, I'll tear up over this. She told me about something that she had read. It was a guy who had decided as an experiment, he'd take responsibility for everything in his life. I remember at the time thinking, that's fucking ridiculous, because my sincere worldview was that I had great ideas, and when they worked, it was because I was a genius, and when they didn't, it was because of some unfair externality that I wasn't in control of. And that was my genuine worldview. And Holly she didn't repeat that anecdote, but it was so, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then I couldn't stop seeing that she just lives like that. And in modelling that behaviour, it was just so attractive. I wanted to be like that. And so then what's really funny is going through the process of trying to change your own reflexes, to change from someone that you don't like being into trying to be someone that you want to be, involves like on every day on every time scale, confronting the fact that you disappoint you. Jesus. Like, and I found it really hard because, like, who wouldn't, right? But thankfully for, I don't know, some reason, the thought came to me that if you're not happy with your previous self, it means you're improving, and maybe that self-loathing is a really positive, like maybe it's an indicator of a good thing, like maybe you're doing the right thing. And then if you reflect on that, you go, well, certainly if you're just praising yourself, that's definitely the wrong thing to do. So the inverse is at least better, I think. And so that was the beginning of this transformation into the beautiful butterfly that you see here. And yeah, wow, I can't remember the rest of the words for this slide, but that was the biggest change. And yeah, thank you again, Holly. So yeah, cool. So round about here is where Switch emerges. This is the OG issue 2017 Switch t-shirt. And whilst travelling with Holly, I knew that I wanted to call the thing that I was going to do next Switch, but I didn't know what it was going to be. We tried go-karts. That didn't work. That was just kind of more of the same, right? Like, I got in touch with some old bosses and said, look, we've learned some stuff about batteries on the racetrack. We want to commercialise. And came up with the idea of building something like a Tesla Powerwall, but you could pull the underlying modules out and chuck them in your go-kart or dirt bike or whatever. So in that project, we learnt the gap. We learnt the hard way about the difference between a prototype and a product. And we learnt the hard way that energy economics, like, that's hard too. So we ran out of money, team had to disband, but whether it was sunk cost fallacy or some stubbornness or whatever, I just couldn't quit. I couldn't put it down. I knew this was a lane I wanted to be in. The fella in the middle there, next to the two olive drums, his name's Michael Coghill. Mike and his brother started an e-waste recycling business. They started out at uni picking up old washing machines off the side of the road and fixing them. And by the time I met them, it was 10 years down the road and they were West Australia's biggest e-waste recycling facility. And the only facility in the country that had not set itself on fire handling lithium-ion batteries. And Michael was happy to give me all of the dead laptop batteries that I could take. And the bottom left corner there, I jerry-rigged, like it was basically, I cable-tied my spot welder to my 3D printer. And I made you're right to shake your head, man. It was fucking hectic. And I had my little robot assistant and we made batteries and there was, the phone would ring now and then and around that time, I started bumping into Alex again, walking his dog at the park, and we'd known each other because Alex was a software developer at HipFlask. And grab the next one. So top left there is the garage, a rental garage where everything happened. And Alex would drop in and help with the setup, the battery management system that monitors the health status of the underlying cells, was connected ultimately to Grafana. And that level of resolution of describing that represents the depth of my knowledge about these things. So I would lean heavily on Alex just to make things work. And he'd come through always at the right time, and he'd just always come through. I remember when you organised a busy bee, just because the shed was fucking chaos, and so just organised a busy bee so that something approximating ordered work could take place there. And then Viv, who's smiling in the bottom left corner there. I'd met Viv when he was a DJ back in the days at the Bird. And in the time that had passed, so I sold my share in 2014, and in 2021, in the time that had passed, Viv had got his ADD diagnosed, worked out that he could actually memorise things now, went and got himself a mechatronic engineering degree. Turns out he's really good at that. At the time that we reconnected, he had moved back to Perth, but was working remote for a defence company and was keen to do something else. Alex had introduced me to his friend Nathan, who's now my friend Nathan, and Alex had also previously introduced me to his friend Alex. So befriend Alex and steal his friends is the kind of key takeaway here. I used to run these. I called my sister and said, Viv is available. He's awesome. If I can't make it work with Viv, the problem is me, and I will go drive trucks. So she lent me some cash. It was just enough to pay Viv for 3 months. He quit a very steady, stable, promising career to come join. And he knew that we run out of cash in 3 months. So he came on as a co-founder of Switch Technologies. Got some equity in doing so. And we were like, I'll have to go back and actually look at the books, but we were very close to running out of cash. It was 2, maybe 4 weeks from just going it's all over. And the phone rings, and it's a friend, Daryl Diaz, who I'd been introduced to previously. And Daryl is employee number 3 or 4, something like that, 4. Working for everyone's friend Jan Hark, who had just started the Australian office of First Mode. So First Mode, really interesting, origin story founders, ex-NASA, doing audacious stuff, building hydrogen-powered haul trucks, and they were building a hybrid underground mining truck in West Australia. And Daryl rang us up and said, well, we need people who know how to commission these electric motors, et cetera, that Viv and I were really experienced with, and it was just perfect. We could say yes to that contract. It gave us enough oomph to rent a warehouse, which is that spot in the middle that you see there, top middle. And at the time, I'd always thought, we initially started running bike nights on Wednesdays, where I was going to build another electric motorbike. And the idea of that was to attract engineers to come around socially, and I would headhunt from, that crowd that would come through. Callum made it clear that he was at risk of quitting his job, and I knew that Callum didn't care about motorbikes, but he might care about boats, so we started building this little electric jet boat, and I thought that might make him want to hang out a bit more, and so it did. And I remember in those early days, me and Viv would go to, we'd meet at Switch headquarters. It'd be me, Viv and Cal, and then Viv and I would go and work at First Mode. And Cal would just be there working on the boat by himself, which was pretty funny, but the work with First Mode dried up without much notice because the contract on their side disappeared, so obviously you cut all the contractors at short notice, and it was really cool to have a team that loved each other and to have a project in the workshop that was just fun, because we were like, okay, what are we going to do? Let's take the boat to the boat ramp and just spend some time having a good time in a period where otherwise you're feeling a bit gross because you're worried about going broke. Yeah, you still feel that, but you keep it off your face. Yep. And then just luck. There's this guy named Henry Cook. He's one of the owners of a company called Amanda Energy. He's a great guy. He's an old farmer turned property developer turned dude who owns an electricity retailer. And Henry would always call me thinking he was talking to a fella named Masood. Masood's got similar skin colour, but that's about it. And it would be always like, yeah, Masood, it's Henry, I need X, Y, Z. We're like, yeah, Henry, it's Mike. It's not Masood, I can't help you with that one. And got this phone call. Yeah, Masood, it's Henry. I need this 500 kilowatt, 860 kilowatt hour battery for a mining camp. It's like, yeah, mate, no problem. Let's get a coffee, talk about it. And so we meet up for a coffee, and he's expecting to see Masood, and he sees me, and had a laugh about it, and we said yes, and we built this battery. It was extraordinary. It's a 14-ton, 20-foot container. It's got to be the most West Australian-made battery in the world. We imported the cells and the inverter. We did all of everything else locally. It was a shame we lost money doing that job because I'm not good at estimating engineering effort. It was a shame that we lost money doing it because it meant that we didn't get to really celebrate the project because the project was extraordinary. Like what was achieved, that thing's still sitting there running happy as the day that it was born. So, actually, let's just hang back on that one. Oh no, you can leave that. Sorry, man. Sorry. So, again, just, I don't know, luck, but first mode needed some more help, and it was pretty much the right time. That last project wrapped up. First mode needed some more help. We were a bit bigger. So this time around, it's 3 good engineers from Switch, that being Viv, Callum, and Lockie, who was the young fella in that previous photo. So they're at first mode essentially every day. And I'm the guy in the office in Solitude doing BD stuff while they do real work. And I had this idea around turning a very particular dump truck into a hybrid. And it was beautiful. Something I was thinking about in the car earlier was what was amazing about having First Mode as a customer was that you'd walk into that environment and you'd feel like every time you step in, it felt like some kind of fucking school reunion or something. Like everyone was stoked to see everyone, And sorry, that doesn't tie into anything, but it was true. It was a great experience. It was really interesting because we had a good connection with our customer. We'd always be trying to find ways to collaborate. And to the extent of if I'd be talking to someone about an idea that I was trying to sell myself as the guy that can, or our team as the team that can deliver a certain thing, I'd never hesitate to also introduce that person directly to First Mode because, I don't know, it's the right thing to do. If that person's looking for a solution, like if they... How do I draw a conclusive point from that? But it feels really nice. It's a real privileged position to be surrounded by really competent people and not see any of them as a threat. And to be able to just make connections and not need to be strategic about like treating opportunities and relationships as if they're zero sum. It was really, really killer. And so, yeah, that project, in about a month, we're going to be announcing what we're doing. It's being built at the moment, and we've got household name partners in mining services companies and a mining company as a customer. It's so goddamn exciting. I can see that I've only got 4 minutes left. So, okay, cool. Yeah, okay, sure. So what we did last year was a heap of fun. We spent most of the year building this hybrid Toyota Land Cruiser Ute. So the customer there is a company called Ekion, who They're innovating at the electrochemistry level, so like proper battery nerds who their chemistry is very well suited to hybrids, and we're very much interested in hybrid vehicles because you can offer someone a bona fide cost-saving, fuel-saving, carbon reduction thing that will fit into your existing operations, it will fit into your existing financials. You don't need to install infrastructure or come up with a 20-year justification for a 20-year payback on an investment. So we built this Land Cruiser, so much fun. It's a 600 horsepower car. It will be road registered in about 2 weeks. So if you want to experience it, Jan at switchtechnologies.net will, or Mike will process your requests and put you in the queue. Customers really depend upon that Grafana setup, that the cloud data bit, insofar as I can talk about it. Echion care about how their chemistry performs, and they count on the way that we host and present the data for them to make conclusions about that deep technical work that they're doing. Cool. So we're also in the middle of delivering a project for Centurion Transport where they bought 30 Daimler electric trucks and we've built the battery microgrid. So it's an off-grid charging station near the airport in Hazelmere. Huge solar arrays, big batteries, 30 electric trucks, our microgrid controller, and again, you've got a trading trucking business that's leaning on that dashboard to be confident that those trucks are charged, that there's enough energy in the battery to charge the trucks. All those trucks have got scheduled, they go on fixed runs every day. So if something goes wrong with the system, the cabbages don't get to Coles, and everyone's got a problem. So they're really counting on that info. And it's really cool seeing, being able to use that same technology stack across a diverse range of things. These are just the photos of the founding teams that I've been privileged to be a part of. Switch is in an extraordinary position. Jan and Shiv have joined. Having people that have done this before, we've got more experience in having already been big. We're a company that's getting big. 3 years ago it was 1 person, now it's 20. It's really exciting. And I look back at the people and the things I've learnt along the way, and I'm just humbled by it. I'm just humbled by the fact that you always get an opportunity to redeem yourself for having been a wanker in the past, and if you can own it and address it, you don't regret it. It's yeah. Anyway, so this has been my therapy. So thank you for participating. Yeah, thanks.